Let's move on to farming and biosecurity then. And just a few days ago, the UK government announced that from the 1st of July, farmers will be able to move animals around England without a Bluetongue license. Is that exactly what's going on?
That is what's going on. And the way I think I would put it is that the biosecurity state, as we've come to know it, is evolving. And we see this tweet here from APHA, who are moving into a state of complete control via the inherent corruption of the system which underpins it. And it's possible to track this shift from killing everything, the slaughter on suspicion policy, to vaccinating everything. And the APHA continues to assume more and more control over the outcomes for livestock, as you say here, tweeting about the restriction of the Bluetongue zone covering all of England, of course, agricultural policy now being a devolved matter. But this means that what are called movement tests will not be required. Now, in an email to who they're calling stakeholders, it's made perfectly clear that the reason for this is an expectation that one of 3 vaccinations will be used on animals deemed susceptible. And here we see an encouragement to discuss vaccination with your vet, as though there may be more than one outcome from such a discussion. Now, all available vaccines are authorised on an emergency basis, according to the Veterinary Medicines Regulations 2013. And to better understand what happens if one does follow the science, it's Schedule 4 that contains the key detail. And they say that an animal may be treated with any one of these things in order to avoid unacceptable suffering. So effectively, this is where a vaccine doesn't already exist. They may use a product for another species or for another condition in the same species. They may use a human medical product authorised in the United Kingdom. They may use a product authorised in any other country for use in any food-producing animal species, or they may even use a product produced extemporaneously by a pharmacist, a veterinary surgeon, or a person holding a manufacturing authorisation. In other words, for that last one, someone who's basically guessing with absolutely no research and no preparation. So one might think that with goalposts that far apart, it's little wonder that investment in vaccines has increased so significantly in recent years. And this is what Bill Gates had to say about his own involvement.
Invested $10 billion in vaccinations over the last 2 decades, and you figured out the return on investment for that. And it kind of stunned me. Can you walk us through the math?
Well, it's pretty impressive that when you take these vaccines, get them to be very inexpensive by making big volume commitments, have that right relationship with the private sector, get the delivery system so they're really getting the coverage out there, you literally save millions of lives. And 20 years ago, when we created these new multilateral organizations, Gavi for the vaccines, Global Fund for HIV, TB and malaria, we didn't know they'd be successful. They've gone through lots of challenges about making sure the money gets there, making sure the efficiency is right. But as we look at upcoming replenishments for those, and we've got so much distraction politically that the international needs like this could get eclipsed if we're not careful, we see a phenomenal track record. It's been $100 billion overall that the world's put in. Our foundation is a bit more than $10 billion, but we feel there's been over a 20-to-1 return. So if you just look at the economic benefits, that's a pretty strong number compared to anything else.
Now, if you're listening and not watching, then I should tell you that for the last bit there where he was talking about the money, he couldn't help but break into a broad smile, because really that's what it's all about. And hand in hand with the requirement for vaccination has to be the demonstration of a threat, emergent or endemic, which is where the Animal and Plant Health Agency comes in. And this is what they say about their role. So as you listen, take a note of the specific language that they use.
APHA's role in controlling bluetongue is that we have the responsibility for controlling animal disease in Great Britain. It's our job to detect cases as they come through, so farmers and vets will report suspicion of disease to us. We'll then go out and look at those animals. We'll take the samples, send them to Pirbright. They are the lead laboratory for bluetongue.
So the Pirbright Institute has a wide range of expertise, ranging from not only the laboratory testing aspect, but also around modelling of disease outbreaks, culicoidal surveillance, and really supporting disease control. So they're now really preparing ourselves for an outbreak later this year, spread by the Culicordes midge, and is able to infect all known ruminant species, including cattle, sheep, goats and camelids.
There we go. Responsibility for controlling animal disease, he said, which is done via testing and the use of the lab at Pirbright. Now, that video was published last year, and it illustrates perfectly how the required outcome may be achieved. Funded in part by the government, the Pirbright Institute here boasts via the UKRI of combating animal disease, and they go on to crow about attracting international investment, citing a $5.5 million investment from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation back in 2019 to establish the Livestock Antibody Hub. This funding is channeled through the Biotechnology and Biological Sciences Research Council, bit of a mouthful, the BBSRC. And there has since been a partnership between them and the Gates Foundation, as well as the Foreign and Commonwealth and Development Office, investing a further $40 million into Pirbright. So bearing in mind Gates is expecting a 20-fold return on such an investment, it should be perfectly obvious that accepting such funding is completely inappropriate, and it compromises every process which occurs thereafter. Now, I mentioned this on the 8th of May last year. The vaccines themselves may freely enter the food chain. This note from the European Medicines Agency refers to the inclusion of adjuvants, aluminium hydroxide and saponin, and goes on to say that the withdrawal period is 0 days, meaning that an animal may be jabbed and milked in the same day. So bolstering the narrative is the 2023 Biological Security Strategy with a foreword from Oliver Dowden, in which he wrote that our world is increasingly vulnerable to biological threats with catastrophic impacts, whether it's another pandemic, a terrorist attack, or antimicrobial resistance. So it's the intimation that climate change is the ring to rule them all, and in each instance, the government is the answer. Now, there are multiple references to the threat posed by zoonotic spillover, which we're told is the transmission of pathogens from animals to humans, even if the animals are not actually ill. And as always, there's no need for it to make any sense. The government has just updated its carbon footprint analysis for the year 2022, and this graph shows exactly how the book cooking exercise works. The destruction of the countryside and the crippling of the economy may be shown to bring about a small decline in the production of domestic greenhouse gases, but this is perfectly offset by the increase in imported goods. And finally, the evolution of the biosecurity state is confirmed by the trials of a testing regime called DIVA, which is said to be able to distinguish between cattle which are supposedly infected with TB and those which have been vaccinated. So in conclusion, and as if it were really necessary to reinforce the point that vaccination is only an exercise in control and profit, this announcement says that, as with other vaccines, a range of protection is expected. Some animals will be fully or only partially protected after vaccination, whilst others will remain susceptible to the disease.
Okay, thank you for that, Charles.